Welcome to the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover. Let's roll. Welcome to the Painter's Business Podcast, the show for growth-minded painting company owners who want to scale, profit, and dominate their markets. I'm your host, Stephanie Stover, and every week we bring you zero-fluff strategies, proven tactics, and behind-the-scenes insights from real business owners and experts who are getting it done on the field. And here's the deal. Every single episode gives you at least one practical, no BS action item that you can take today to help grow your business. Whether you want more residential leads, commercial contracts, safer crews, this is where painters come to grow. So let's roll. Today, I'm joined by Blake Cockrum, President and CEO at Royal Painting KC. So Blake, tell me the origin story of Royal Painting. What was the light bulb moment for you?
So I had been in corporate America for quite a while, 10, 15 years following college. Typical 8 to 5, 9 to 6 jobs, 12-hour days, doing finance and any variety of accounting, different types of analysis and all those things like that. And that's fine in and of itself. The work is fine. I don't mind it. I like numbers. I'm good at math. I always have been. It was the schedule. It was the grind. It was never being home. And I spent a few years kind of feeling that way and feeling very worn out without really doing anything about it, just kind of feeling like this is where I'm at. This is what I have to do at this point. This is what my resume says I am. How do I redefine myself? Right. And I had no idea how to do that. And then one day I kind of just got to a breaking point where I said, there's got to be something different. So I had reached out to a gentleman online that we kind of, our paths had crossed over time, weren't really close, just kind of acquaintances. And I saw that he had recently started a business. And I reached out to him and I just said, dude, what are you doing? And he gave up like a great career to do this thing. How'd you get into this? And how'd you give up your old job? And he was like, yeah, I've been asking myself the same thing. But he said, I was just so tired of doing the thing. And it was like, we were literally just feeling and thinking the same things. And, fast forward 6 months and I had basically done the same thing that he did, gave up the life that I had previously been living and been used to and been comfortable with for something that I had no idea how I was going to do or even why. It just felt like at the right time, kind of a thing where I had an opportunity. I had saved up some money. I'd been smart financially, and I was able to do something that I had previously been kind of scared to do. And I jumped into it, and then we were kind of just really fortunate and successful right out of the gates, and here we are today.
Awesome. So many painting company owners feel similar to how you did when you had your corporate job in that, they're working 12, 16-hour days. They're frustrated, they're exhausted. What are you doing different in your painting company?
Look, so make no mistake, that first year or 18 months is
Yeah.
is pretty bad for most people. Even those of us who have a plan and even those of us who kind of do it the right way, that first year is that 16, 18-hour day. Even if you aren't on site for all those hours, you're working at home and you're trying to strategize and you're figuring out all the different things and you're working on your own books and whatever you can to sort of like make ends meet and make every dollar stretch as far as possible. And you're very, very close to your business. But over time, that sort of becomes obviously too much for one person. It's not sustainable, right?
Of course.
And you don't want it to be. So you kind of look for ways to add your ingenuity to the business and where am I best served? What can I hire for? What am I good at? Let's focus on those things. And let's put somebody else that's probably better at the things that I'm doing in those roles. And that's what we did. And at first it was just a matter of hiring more people. I was trying to do probably 2 or 2.5 people's worth of work, if that makes sense. It just wasn't sustainable. I was not happy. I was happy in what I was doing in general, but the days were very, very long. The nights were short, and it was like I was finishing up one day, taking a breath, and immediately starting the next. So the first thing was essentially hiring another me, somebody that I could teach to do all the things that I had been doing, somebody that I could trust to do them at a high level and allow me to focus on other things, AKA growing the business and sort of be in I want to grow the business. I want to network with people in this space, and allow myself to still live while doing this business.
So the topic that we're discussing is how the top 5% of painting companies scale their business without burning out their teams. How do you structure your team?
So look, I think okay, so when you're going to scale first, and people do it differently, right? But
Mhm.
it's kind of this double-edged sword. Like you've got to have enough work to hire the people, but you've also got to have people to run it once you've got the work coming in, right? So at some point, I think one of the best things that you can do is hire a really aggressive salesperson that's going to go out there and
Mhm.
get you a whole bunch of work, and they're going to bring in the jobs. Because what I like to do, I always talk about like, I want to create a problem before I have the solution, right? You will come up with a solution once you have a problem. So if the problem is I've got way too much work coming in, I can hire. I
Yeah.
can I can manage that because look, I can put them on a 2 week hold if I have to. Hey, we'll get to you. We're really busy, but we'll call you as soon as we can get the job in, or whatever that takes. And then at that point, you're hiring painters and you're hiring a general manager to sort of run the crews, right? So I always tell people, don't worry about whatever the solution is. Find the problem, create the problem, and then we'll figure out what the answer is. So for me, I think look, it's hiring a really, really aggressive salesperson that's going to represent you well, number one, but also go out there and get the work. Once you've got all that work, hire some people. You've got, more crews, or you're finding another sub crew, or however you do your actual painting, right? And then at some point, when you're ready to let go of the sort of managerial piece, hiring a GM to run that.
So once you have your top painters or your top staff, how do you retain them, especially when other companies are offering more money or more incentives? What's your strategy?
I tend to pay, which this does cost me money, but I think it saves me money in the long run. I tend to pay my people pretty well, usually above market average. So I like to know what painters in my area are being paid. And I try to pay them at least as well as that, or maybe slightly above that, especially when you're talking about guys who have been with you for a number of years, because it is really worth it to keep those guys. When you are constantly burning and churning through people, it's hard on you, it's hard on the people beneath you. Eventually, then you've got a brush in your hand because you're trying to figure out how to do things because you've lost too many people. So I think you got to pay people well, number one. I think you also have to treat them well, and I do think that the money is usually more important, but I also think that allowing your people to have a living wage and a life and time off and not working every single weekend, those things, those sort of intangibles are very important too. You've got to treat these people like you would treat your own friends or family, because honestly, eventually you're spending enough time with them and you're conversing with them enough that they sort of become in your circle, right?
Hmm.
Professionally, but they're still
Yeah.
people that you are dealing with on a regular basis. So I think you have to sort of have a mindset for, how do I want to run my business? How do I want to be perceived as a business owner? How involved do I want to be? And then how do I hire people that are going to run this in the way that I would do it myself, right? So I think you've got to really set the tone early. And I think it goes all the way from like, how do I own this business? How do I want the business run organizationally from a day to day basis, to how do I want my painters to treat customers? And how do I want them to care for someone's house
Mm.
or for someone's business? And I think once you've established that, you're going to go through some people, right? Like, you're going to find people that do not care about that. And they're just going to say, I want my paycheck. And is it Friday yet? And eventually you kind of get rid of those people, right? Everybody doesn't have to be a perfect character fit, but they do need to at least respect the way you want to run your organization. And I think once you find that really nice blend of great painter, good human, and then have somebody that can lead them in the way that you want to, it's a really, really nice thing. And it allowed me to kind of take a back seat at that point.
Okay. So, what are some signs that a painting business owner is burning out?
Oh gosh, I feel like I'm burning out a couple times a year. I mean, there are times where I know it's time for me to go on vacation, so that's exactly what I do. I actually, earlier this summer, I had no intention of taking a vacation in July, and then took a vacation in July because I was at a point where I felt like I was working too much, I was doing too much, and I took a week away and I went and spent a week in New York, and it was wonderful. And I came back recharged and re-energized, and I felt so much better. I think when you are thinking about work way too much and you wake up stressed out and you're going to bed thinking about it and you're answering your phone way too often and your kids are saying stuff like, Dad, can you get off the phone? Like, it's time to step away for a little while. And
Yeah.
if you've built this thing the way that hopefully you've built it, to where you can live a life and you can spend time with your family, then you should be able to step away, and you should be able to trust your crews and your people to run things for 5 or 6 or 7 days while you're away. Now, are you still having to answer emails? Yes. Did I still have text messages and phone calls that I had to take? Yes. But they know for the most part, look, he's gone, he's out of town. We've kind of got to handle this thing on our own, unless it's kind of a high level issue that we need to look into with him.
Mhm. And so, what are some boundaries or habits that have helped you avoid burnout as a leader?
The first year that I did this, I didn't have any boundaries. It was, if the phone rings, I'm picking it up. And
That's
part of that is
common.
because Yeah, you're hungry to work. You're hungry to make money. You've just spent a lot of money, presumably, on starting this business. So you're like, okay, I want every bit of money that I can take because I've got to, I want to get back in black. I want to be able to actually say I'm profiting money. So you're kind of taking phone calls and you're answering emails in the middle of the night, and you're only sleeping 4 hours. I think you realize after a while that, like, if you're going to stay in this for any period of time, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you let yourself burn out, you will. So I eventually had to say, like, look, when 6 o'clock hits, that's it. I'm done. There is no painting emergency. I've used this with like customers before, and like with painters, like there's no painting emergency. It's not a real thing. Like this isn't like, a tornado or a flood or anything like that. Look, nobody is going to be severely hurt or anything like that if we don't answer the phone immediately.
Yeah, I can't think of what would constitute a painting emergency.
I haven't found one yet. I've found times where customers thought they had an emergency, but it certainly wasn't. So yeah, at some point, I think you have to just say this can wait until tomorrow. And I think you get better and better over time at handling the things that are both important and time sensitive, and putting off some of the other things. Like what can I delegate? What can I ditch? What can I put first on this thing to get all the things done by the end of the day, and then leave these other things to someone else or pushed into tomorrow. So I think it's a lot of time management. It's understanding what is my value and where should I be putting my time and energy at? What can I give to someone else to do, right? And then at the end of the day, just saying, okay, I'm good. This will wait till tomorrow.
Earlier on, when you were still working primarily in the business, how did you make space to work on the business and make that transition when you're working those crazy hours?
So that's where I got very little sleep. So I would essentially, I mean, what we were doing was 7 or 8 o'clock every morning until 5 or 6 every night. There was a physical job or two, whatever jobs taking place, actual
Mhm.
painting. There were times where I was stepping in to like go and actually paint, like just crazy stuff, where I was trying to do everything while bringing clothes with me and changing in the car, going to estimates, coming back, and trying to wear every single possible hat. It didn't make sense. It was crazy. 6 months in, I was exhausted, and I was just like, I got to make a change. There's got to be something different here. And then at night, I would go home and I would work on building estimates, and I would work on answering emails. I would answer messages that I had missed while I was out and about running around everywhere. And it was basically kind of like my housekeeping cleanup time. And, it was 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock every night before I was really done working. And again, it's just not sustainable.
Mhm.
So at some point, I had to say, okay, one, I have to trust the people that are under my employ to do their thing. Now, some of that is making sure to hire more good people and get rid of some people that maybe aren't great. Some of it is trusting the people that you've put in place to sort of do your old job and say, okay, I'm going to check in on you. I'm going to set these sort of guardrails and make sure that you're doing your thing, but I've got to trust you to do that. Otherwise, why are you here?
Yeah.
And then I'm just constantly doing like the helicopter parent thing where I'm always looking over somebody. So a lot of it is just knowing that this baby that you have that you've created, it's still very much in its infancy. It's not going to die overnight. Like somebody else can care for this thing while you're away doing other things, and allowing them the space to do that.
Is that the shift in mindset that helped you scale sustainably?
That was really it. I mean, for me, it was, look, most entrepreneurs, most business owners are control freaks. We may not know it. We may not admit it. Most of us are control freaks. We just are.
There yet?
I haven't met a business owner yet that's like, yeah, I don't care, like whatever. Like I haven't. And if they are, they're probably either going out of business or they are so far, they're like a $20 million a year business. So they don't have to like care. The kind of tweeners where you're like, you've been in business for 5 to 10 years. I mean, most of us are still in the business. We still very much care about the day to day to some degree. And so for me, it was trusting other people. It was looking at the data that I have and seeing the results and saying, look, here's 5 straight jobs that I really didn't even touch. They all went well. The customers were happy, and I didn't have to monitor every single little thing because the people that I trusted to do the work did the work. So part of it was just time and letting myself let go a little bit. And over time I kind of loosened up as well, right? Like I've got crews,
Mhm.
like as we're speaking, I have crews working right now. I am not worried whatsoever because I know they're doing a great job. And I will touch base with customers. I still do that quite often because I like to have a very personal touch to the business. I like for it to feel like it is a family, locally owned kind of an experience for customers, if you will. And I think that plays really well. I think people like that, especially in an industry that it tends to be fraught with dishonesty and has this really bad name, kind of, right? You know how this
Yeah.
is. I
Oh,
always
yeah.
say there's about 20% that are like really great in this industry, and there's like 80% that you're just not sure about.
Yeah.
So I think that my approach in that sense, to have a very personal approach and a very personal touch, has paid off really well for us. And I also just enjoy people. I like talking to the people that we're working with.
Hmm.
So I know that the individuals that we're currently working with are happy. Everything is going well, and if there was a problem, I'm sure my phone would be blowing up. So it's being able to do that, being able to let go, being able to go do the other things, and just trusting people.
Hmm. So it sounds like everything's going pretty well for you guys. What would you say is your biggest challenge in the business right now?
So things are good, right? But there's always a challenge. And every time I always joke about this. Every time that things are going perfect, like something's about to happen, right? Like something is going to happen. So like we had a really great year last year, and then all of a sudden we get to election time, which is always a big every 4 years when you've got that,
Yeah.
it's a weird time. So you've got this election, it's obviously highly controversial, and no matter what side you're on, people were just kind of like, I think, worried, and a lot of people holding on to their money probably. But then you've also got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and then tax time, which I always tell anybody that's new in this industry, like, watch out for the winter time, because it's not just cold weather that hurts you.
Hmm.
It's multiple holidays that all hit within just, weeks of each other. And then tax season, where people are either A, waiting to get a tax return that's going to help them spend money, or B, waiting to get a tax bill that they're then holding on tight to their money and not willing to jump into an expensive painting project, right? So you've got to be able to weather that storm. So a lot of times, like, we'll have, and I haven't figured it out. I have not got it completely figured out, because we'll have a really good winter, and then we'll have a bad winter, and then a good one and a bad. So it is still, there is a level of unpredictability, I think.
Hmm.
You want to get as many jobs, as many contracts as you can, to be sustainable through the winter months, especially like Kansas City. We have a pretty good winter here. It's about 4 months,
Hmm.
where you're not painting outside at all. So you've got to figure things out to where, how can I keep this thing kind of moving during the winter, albeit not as profitable as May, June, July, August, but still, keeping this thing going forward. And I think that, obviously the challenges of having the slower seasons, as well as having, currently in Kansas City right now, we are having the rainiest summer, and I've lived here my whole life.
Really?
The rainiest summer that I can ever remember.
Oh, man.
The grass is green. So normally, I mean, this is a great indication. The grass is green, the trees are all green, everything is green here. Normally, by this time of the year, everything is completely dead.
Huh.
I'm not even having to mow my grass normally at this time of year. I'm having to mow my grass once or twice a week,
Wow.
because we're having so much rainfall. So that has caused issues where you get into the middle of a job and you have to stop because it's raining. You have to wait
My
a couple of
goodness.
days,
Yeah.
let things dry out. If you're doing a deck or if you're doing fences, you're having to make sure that those things are dry and don't have moisture in them before you go and stain them. And then you're trying to move up interior customers while you're rained out on your exterior customers. So that's always a challenge, right? But the good thing is that most customers absolutely understand that. Most customers, a simple conversation with them, and they're like, hey, that's cool. You can't control the weather. Do your thing. We know that you'll take care of us when you can. So it can be stressful logistically, but overall, it's just a balancing act.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had a magic wand that you could wave to solve any one problem in the business, what would it be?
Labor is tough, right? Every time it, it's kind of like what I said earlier. Like, when things are going too perfect, like something's going to happen, right? There's been so many times where I'm like, man, I've got the perfect team. And then somebody immediately leaves.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I had just one of my, and I've never really said this to him, but one of my just favorite painters that I've ever had, he had some family stuff going on, and some of his family lived out of town, and there were some health issues and stuff last year. And he ended up having to move about 2 hours away. So far enough that this is no longer going to work for him at that point, right? And he was
Hmm.
sad about it. I was sad about it. His coworkers were sad. He was just a super reliable guy, a really great painter, a smart kid too. And losing him, I was just like, my gosh, just you all of a sudden you have this perfect team, and you have this the next guy that you're like, oh, this is going to be like a crew leader. This guy is going to be good. And then you lose somebody, but we turned right around after that. We got lucky. We hired another guy, that's maybe even better.
Oh,
So
wow.
we, but
That's good.
these aren't every day, right? For
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
like A player you get like a lot of C players.
Yeah, for sure.
And I always tell people that are, it's like your first year, your first 6 months, and they're asking like, how do you hire people? How do you find good people? And I'm like, look, you find like two A players. Everybody doesn't have to be an A. You just have to find a couple, and you can find like a bunch of Bs, and you can work with As and Bs. But once you get down to like a C, you can give them a little bit of time to see if they can kind of raise to the level of like a B or maybe an A minus. But if they don't, you got to get rid of them. You got to have As and Bs.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was just an absolutely a great conversation. Did you have any last piece of advice or message you wanted to leave listeners with?
So, painting or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
As far as being an entrepreneur, I encourage people to look, if you're not happy in your current life, reach out to somebody like me, for example, or anybody. I encourage people all the time. If you're not happy with what you're doing, there is a better way of doing it, or certainly a different way that I would never want somebody to get to retirement age and they say, man, I wish I could have done that thing, or I should have done that thing. I'm so unhappy. The worst that can happen is you fail. And
Yeah.
that may sound scary, but I think that's sort of the difference in an entrepreneur and a business owner, right? Is like we have a stronger, higher appetite for risk. And one thing that I'm never afraid of is to fail. So I would always encourage anybody to give it a try, right? To
Mm.
try. And if there's a goal, or if there's something you've always seen yourself doing, or if you just want to be the one in charge, give it a shot.
So I think that's most of the questions that I have. Where can people follow you or get in touch?
So pretty much everything. I mean, we've got Instagram and Facebook, and everything's under Royal Painting KC. We stay pretty active on social. We do a lot of before and after photos on there and try to show the work that we're doing. But yeah, so we're basically Royal Painting KC on just about everything: Facebook, Instagram, our website, royalpaintingkc.com. We are proudly locally owned, and everything here. And I have all my own employees too. I don't sub out the work, which I'm very, very proud of too.
Fantastic. That
So
that says a lot about quality.
it does. It's quality control is a lot easier when you have your own folks.
Good. Awesome. I love that. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. You can find Blake at Royal Painting KC on Instagram, Facebook, and royalpaintingkc.com.
That's right.
And if you want to keep up with what we're doing, hit subscribe or follow. Share this with a painter who needs to hear it. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. This is the Painter's Business Podcast with Stephanie Stover.